Good morning. My name is Pablo Willie Bustos, and I'm the music director here. And I'm joined with Priscilla Ewan and the choir today. And I would love for us to start our service with song. Please join me in body or spirit while we sing two hymns, Morning Has Broken, followed by Draw the Circle. Let's sing. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet foreigns new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, strong in completeness where God's feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, Lord of the one light, demons of pain. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's great creation of the new day. All right, and now as our slide changes, we're going to sing Draw the Circle. Lyrics are up here. The choir will be leading us from up there with me here. And we'll have Priscilla do a little introduction, and we'll get started. Here we go, and breath. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide. No
Good morning. Welcome to First Unitarian Church of Rochester. Here it is our mission through spiritual connection in community. We listen deeply to others and ourselves. We open to wonder and transformation, and we serve together with love and humility. I'm the Reverend Sherry Halliday Kwan. I'm the lead minister here, one of the ministers that serves this congregation, and I am so excited to be leading worship not only with all of you who bring your presence and witness and song to this gathering, not only our fabulous musicians, including the choir, not only Jenna, our lay worship associate, but also our guest preacher today, a member of this congregation and the former lead singer of Orange Sky, Melissa Boyack. Yeah. Melissa, I'm so grateful for you in sharing your perspective with us today and a little bit of your spiritual journey. It matters when we gather together and share something of who we are and what is going on for us. We gather on this space, on the ancestral and contemporary land of the Seneca people, the keepers of the western door of the Haudenosaunee. And we gather here as people who have been coming. As I look around the room, I know there are people who have been members of this congregation for over 50 years. And I don't think I've met all of you. There are some who are new or newish here, and if you're looking to get connected with our community, I invite you to let us know in the chat that you'd like to go deeper or stop by the welcome desk, and we can make sure that you'll have a chance to meet with others and learn more about our community, and we can help meet you on your spiritual journey. Whether you've been here once or 2,500 times, after our worship gathering, I invite you to stick around for connection. We gather in smaller groups for learning opportunities, for building community, for ways of being together. And we understand that to be a part of what it means to be a church together. I am so grateful to be with all of you. I was not kidding when I said that all of us lead worship together. This truly is the work of the people. So I'm going to invite you to settle into your seat, take a deep breath, and join me in our unison words for lighting our chalice together. Jenna will light it here in the sanctuary. Those online hopefully will light a candle as well. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and mysteries of this great gift. A few years ago, I was packing for a trip, and I was uncertain of what to put in my bag. That's not a dilemma that I face very often. It's one of the perks of wearing all black all of the time. But on this particular trip, I wasn't sure if I wanted to pack my Birkenstocks. Well, this weekend it's Earth Day, and it's also the kickoff to Lesbian Visibility or Lesbian Awareness Week, which maybe is redundant with Earth Week. And so I know there are plenty of good reasons to wear Birkenstocks. I was going to a sweaty place where I'd have to walk a lot, a conference, but I was going to be a leader and facilitator with a bunch of high school students. And I, a grown adult, suddenly found myself really nervous about being judged for being an old hippie by 14-year-olds. And so I had this dilemma. Would I face my fears and pack the thing I knew was the reasonable choice? Or would I allow myself to be shaped and bent by what I thought these high schoolers would expect of me? I gave myself a pep talk, by which I mean I called a friend, and she gave me a pep talk and told me to be an adult and wear whatever I wanted to wear. And I packed my Birkenstocks, and I arrived, and well, through the window that we were meeting in, I could see this group of 60 high school students waiting for me to enter. And, well, many of them were cool, and I expected many of them to judge me. And I walked in, proud, ready to be judged, and found that no fewer than 25 of them were wearing Birkenstocks, that I had not been keeping track of the trends, and apparently what is old is new again. And I think this is why we come to church. We're practicing old-fashioned things, like breaking bread at table together, or asking people what they need and being willing to change a little bit for it, or being kind to strangers. Here in this community, we don't self-righteously proclaim that we are nice to strangers when others are not. We don't simply sit here and say, well, we don't shoot them, though I do understand that to be true. But we expect this place also to be a place of rehearsal, of practice, where we learn to engage people we don't yet know, not only for our sake here in this room, but also so that we go out into the world and do the same with our neighbors and with those that we stumble upon. It is so good to be here with all of you. I invite you in the chat or here in person to greet a neighbor and share with them something that you value about your own sense of fashion, or something that you believe is maybe a little out of the ordinary, and they may or may not agree with you, but something you like about yourself all the same. Please greet your neighbors.
Wanschenden Ringen, die sich über die Dinge ziehen.
I live my life in ever-widening circles that stretch themselves out over all the things. I won't perhaps complete the last one, but I intend on trying. I circle around God, around the ancient tower, and I circle for thousands of years. And I don't know yet, am I a falcon, a storm, or a mighty song?
Thank you, choir. That was incredible. I invite you now into a time of meditation, reflection, and prayer. For everyone here in person and those online, beginning with a shared silence within this sanctuary and beyond. I invite you now into your own breath. Thank you. Our next piece is called Wanderer. It's a poem written by me, Jenna Cohen, in case you can't see my name tag from afar. I've spent my days restlessly scouring the earth for a place of safety, a sanctuary to exhale the woes I carry. Sleepless nights I've searched my dreams, rings of darkness hang from under my eyes, rippling. Will I ever find a bed that's not too hard or not too soft to rest my golden locks? A place that fits just right. My persistent need for kinship has taken me to some unexpected places, on unexpected adventures with unexpected people. Curious, interesting. I went looking for affirmation from every soul I came upon, attaching myself to people and places in which I did not belong, finding myself discontent, without comfort, in need of warmth. The search continues. The balls of my feet propel me forward, quickening, eager to discover whatever comes next. Is there a corner of this world just for me, tailor-made to call my own? My home. But where is home for a wandering soul? Lost, looking for acceptance wherever she roams. A chameleon disguised in human form, shape-shifting to fit the mold she mistakes for identity. Outside my body, looking in, examining my own humanity. Where have you been, old friend? Now we'll move into our ritual of community care. We invite everybody here in the sanctuary and online to start this ritual, to bring what is heaviest on our hearts or most present in our mind this morning, to lay it on the altar of community and spirit, honoring the complexities of life, the grief, the growth, and the gratitude, alive in each of us. Online, you are invited to share in the chat, and in the sanctuary, you are invited to arrive at one of the altars in the aisles here and light a candle for your grief, your gratitude, or your growth. Extinguishing with the taper candle with the snuffer, which I find to be a funny word. May we now share in this ritual of community care together. I'm staying up there, aren't I? Each week, members and friends generously contribute to our offering, which helps us to sustain and grow our community. This collection supports the work and witness of our church, and each week we give half of our collection to a partner organization.
We do this every week. Sometimes we do it a little earlier or a little later. I think they're gonna play a song.
Oh,
It's beautiful. It's a Chinese folk song called Jasmine Flowers. And then we're gonna come back and do this.
Thank you, thanks. I'm so happy that you're clapping for me to ask you to give us your money. Each week, members and friends generously contribute to our offering, which happens at multiple points in the service sometimes. But it helps us to sustain and grow our community. This collection supports the work and witness of our church each week. And we give half of the collection to a partner organization helping those in need and working to create a more just and loving world. This week, we are sharing the plate collection with Rock Acts, an interfaith community organizing project of multiracial, interfaith, urban and suburban congregations and groups that strive to train and empower citizens to create systemic change and shape political, social, and economic decisions that impact their lives, that impact our community. You can give online at rochesterunitarian.org/donate using the QR code displayed or in our baskets that will come around for collection. Our offering will now be graciously received.
Our second reading today is an excerpt from Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. She had found a jewel down inside herself, and she had wanted to walk where people could see her and gleam it around. But she had been set in the marketplace to sell, been set for stillbait. When God had made the man, he made him out of stuff that sung all the time and glittered all over. But then after some angels got jealous and chopped him into millions of pieces, and still he glittered and hummed. So they beat him down to nothing but sparks, but each little spark had a shine and a song. So they covered each one all over with mud, and the lonesomeness and the sparks made them hunt for one another.
Good morning, friends. For those of you I haven't yet met, my name is Melissa Boyack, and my mic is not on. Is it? Is it on? You good? Okay. Woo, there it is. As Reverend Sherry mentioned earlier, I am a longtime member here at First Unitarian, and many of you know me as the former lead singer of Orange Sky. I am mom to Casey and partner to Mike. I am a one-time graphic designer who worked my way up to marketing director. I am also a politics nerd, a huge Brandi Carlile fan, and arguably a halfway decent cook. All of that and a lot more is me. On April 5th, 2022, just over a year ago, my life and my outward identity were suddenly altered following what I later realized was a severe panic attack. In the weeks prior, the chronic migraines I'd grown accustomed to over many years had felt different. There was a new sort of pressure inside my skull, and my trusty meds weren't working as reliably. When it got worse, I started a short course of steroids. The panic attack hit out of the blue about 12 days later. It happened, then it ended, then everything else began. I was perpetually dizzy, extremely tired, and I could not quite think right. I was sensitive to light and noise, and I was having a hell of a time driving due to all of the rapid unconscious processing required. Keeping up with work was next to impossible. At first, I assumed it was all just temporary, that I just needed to rest. But 2 weeks later, an MRI of my brain revealed dozens of microbleeds, mostly in my frontal lobe, that had likely been accumulating for years. A month after that, on May 24th, I was diagnosed with a rare early onset case of cerebral amyloid angiopathy, or CAA, a vascular neurodegenerative disease with no treatment, no cure, and only sparse data available on which to try and predict my future. We only know it will eventually get worse, but not today. On that Zoom call, the doctor told me and Mike that he wished he had better news and that he was very sorry. It was a beautiful spring day. That evening, Mike and I went for a walk and started the long process of rewriting our expectations. Soon after, I said goodbye to the best job I'd ever had, settled into a period of grief, and gratefully accepted dozens of wonderful meals delivered by a host of kind First Unitarians. One thing I did not do was break. Yes, I cried a lot, but I did not completely fall apart. I think most of us, when we imagine ourselves in such a situation, expect that we would disintegrate, at least for a period of time. I might have predicted the same for myself. For a while, people seemed mildly surprised that I could carry on a conversation. You may be surprised that I am up here right now under these circumstances, even a year into it, still contending with perpetual concussion-like symptoms. But what I discovered instead was that maybe I had been preparing for this curveball most of my life, not in the sense that I was always anticipating doom, but that spiritual inquiry had for a long time been helping me learn to see myself beyond my immediate circumstances. It had taught me not to define anyone, including me, in simple external terms. Yes, I was deeply rattled by this shift, by the sudden diminishing of my autonomy and the wide open future I used to take for granted. But I did not feel then, and I do not feel now, like I have lost myself. I want to try and tell you one piece of why I think that is. In this culture, we so often make choices based on immediate gratification. Do I really feel like I need to take this walk, or read this book, or go to church today? Will this make me feel better right now? We all do this, right? It's a near universal response to our environment. It's in the water. But we are gathered here now because we know that spiritual practice, however we define it, is a balm to the chafing of time and an obscene amount of demands and distractions, a way out of the trap, an anchor. It is a way to shake off the mud that obscures who we are, a cleaning of the gutters that allows us to flow more freely and to find our way back to ourselves and to one another. I feel specially qualified now to remind us all that it is also a long-term process that cannot help us all that much if we wait until a crisis has already happened before we get started. I've thought a lot this past year about my spiritual path, which is a bit of a salad bar of artistic exploration, meaningful social connections, and intellectual curiosity, along with worship and other more traditional practices. Religion, specifically mainstream Protestant Christian Sunday school, was my first organized forum for working through the big questions. Early on, it was a good circle to be a part of, really good. Mostly, I remember Bible stories and kindness and forgiveness, pretty solid fundamentals without much in the way of fundamentalism. I remember church as a time for family and chatting with friendly adults, mostly the much older ones, like the age I am now, and crunchy cookies and hot black tea with milk after services. As I came of age, church offered many genuine opportunities to be of service to others. Over time, however, I noticed frustrating contradictions and was increasingly uneasy about patriarchy and requirements of belief that didn't make sense to me. I asked heretical questions, and when I was 16 or 17, my beautifully open-minded mother told me that I was a Unitarian. I remember the exact moment my mom, my sister, and I were squished into our tiny single bathroom, all sharing one little mirror, getting ready to go out somewhere. I was making points about how other religions besides Christianity also seemed to have a lot to offer, and she ever so casually handed me a new religious identity. I had never heard of this magical thing before, a Unitarian. But the word was fizzy and sparkly. This isn't the moment I thought I might choke up. And it sounded to me like it was probably right. So I became a Unitarian about 15 years later. In the interim, I immersed myself in the arts and wildly diverse social scenes, and dabbled in philosophy, psychology, and neurology. I was that nerd who, in between novels, bought books about research into phantom limbs and other tributaries of emerging brain science. Sometimes I even read them. At the same time, I grew interested in Buddhism, Taoism, and Zen, and felt a resonance with Eastern philosophies. It all seemed refreshingly light on dogmatic certainties and heavy on ways of being that I later came to understand simply as humility. Side note, humility is my go-to spiritual anchor. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. So, in my 20s, I was really into having epiphanies. One of my favorite moments was the time I came up with a basic theory of identity while waiting for my boyfriend in the student lounge. It stuck, though. At the time, I was drinking in new discoveries like a sponge, and I really wanted to try and understand the opposite. Why it was that people often seemed terrified of new ideas. How did some, even in a free society, end up attached to rigid paradigms, locked inside tight little boxes like cults or extreme political groups, devoid of so many choices and experiences, often believing in things that were demonstrably false and harmful, when the whole world was just outside their door? Why didn't they choose to escape? I landed on the idea then that for some folks, disillusionment might simply be too painful. In a spiral college-ruled notebook, I sketched 2 circles in blue ink. One was big and expansive with just a thin dotted line around it. The other was small and surrounded by a thick, heavy border. Each circle represented a very different identity construct. While those in a looser, larger circle had relative freedom of movement, anyone stuck in a rigid little bubble would have to experience a great deal of pain in order to free themselves, and there was no real guarantee that they would existentially survive the process. As I imagined it, rejecting the beliefs and, more importantly, the people with them inside their exclusive little bubbles could, in the most extreme cases, feel catastrophic, leaving them virtually shredded. It became clear to me then that disillusionment is integral to growth for all of us, and that rigid perceptions of ourselves and others can only lead to suffering. Over time, some of the soup that makes us who we think we are has to be tossed out of the bowl in order to make room for new ingredients, even if it hurts. Happily, though, the more we expand in this way, the more permeable our identity borders become, to a point, and the less painful this give and take process will be over time. Practicing disillusionment makes it less scary when we do not lose ourselves. Practicing change and evolution, and I will add non-judgment, in the normal course of life makes it easier when changes happen to us without our consent. Now for balance, a little science. Neurologically, our sense of identity is deeply rooted in the basal ganglia, somewhere back here, and adjacent primitive brain regions, which are not as neuroplastic as the outer regions of our brains. We are animals whose core identities are biologically hardwired. Even if we manage to establish a more open, permeable sense of who we are, we cannot entirely protect ourselves from existential threats, and that's okay. There's no ideal state of transcendence where we can become perfectly fluid and unaffected. That's just another illusion, another brand of fundamentalism. Identity boundaries are important. While my illness has changed some things, I still need a contained sense of who I am. As much as we might idealize a life where we are boundless, might find growth in moments of transcendence, brain science provides a lot of good evidence that this isn't sustainable. We can inhale and expand, but the exhale must eventually follow. So yes, many things about me have changed. The shape of my circle is quite different than it was even 13 months ago. It has been hard, and it will get harder. But this sudden shift isn't something that happened to me. It's something that happens to people. I no longer front a rock band, but I am still mother to Casey and partner to Mike and a huge Brandi Carlile fan. I no longer earn money at a job, but I am still a halfway decent cook who for now has more time for crafting and spoiling my cat, who deserves it. I am no longer ambitious and noisy and busy. My ego and my horizon have been downsized. But on the upside, this has gifted me with a greater sense of humility and compassion. Allow me to leave you with a challenge. Let us make a habit of shaking off that mud that covers up our sparks. Let us always be playful and joyful with the fickle traits that make us our unique selves, while remaining anchored in the constants that bind us to one another and to all life, past, present, and future. And as we think about unfurling our desires for who we want to be, let us draw our circles wide, trusting that the more we embrace the inevitability of change, the more intact we will remain when we're met with curveballs and surprises, even the big scary ones. May it be so. Thank you, and amen.
Thank you so much for sharing those beautiful words. Thank you. As we get ready for our connection time, let's join in singing one more hymn together, For the Earth Forever Turning. Please stand in body and spirit.
I'll invite you to take a seat for just a moment because I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we, all wanderers covered in mud, might have others sing our songs back to us. We invite you to stay for connection and online as well as in person. There's a Pronoun Pro workshop So if you're confused when I say that I use both them and they and she and her pronouns, that is a great workshop to go to. It's in room 110 as well as online. Parents of trans children and youth are meeting today. We've got pagans planning Beltane, you pagans planning Beltane. There's a gathering for folks in the LGBTQ community to hear a little bit of Mary Brett's life story and how she came to be in this community with all of us. If you're planning to join the congregation on May 7th at our new member ceremony, there's UU 201. It's the final of our 3-class series. And then there's coffee and conversation. There is caffeine right through those doors. And if you're not going to bombard Melissa gently, please be gentle, my loves. Grab a cup of coffee, settle into conversation. Parents are meeting upstairs, and folks are meeting all over right here in the lobby to chat, to get to know each other, to ask questions of each other's spiritual journeys and connect deeply with one another. Also later this afternoon in Pittsford, there is a drag story hour. And if you are someone who would like to show up as part of a love wall and be a barrier between children and families going to this story hour and those who wish to shame kids for coming to listen to stories and hear from folks drawing from a wide gender expansiveness, come be a part of that love wall. People online are learning to be Zoom ushers. There are so many ways that you all are being the church, not just here on Sunday mornings, but also after we tip into the 11 o'clock hour, and I hope Monday through Saturday also. It is good to be together. But let us close our worship time by extinguishing our chalice together. We extinguish this flame, but not the lighted truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We live our lives in ever-widening circles, hearing the songs sung to us from others. We live our lives from ever-widening circles. And whether we complete this next turn or not, may we glimmer and glisten and sing the song put within us. Go in peace, go in joy. I love you. Amen.